Hey everybody, welcome back to the Calibrate Tools DIY channel. If you use any kind of power saw, like a circular saw, miter saw, jigsaw, and you want to get those really clean cuts, stick around and I'll see you right after this. Now the first thing you want to consider is your blade dull? Because if it is, it's going to rip through the wood when you really want it to slice through the wood. You can't do that with a dull blade. Also, you want a higher tooth count blade, a blade with a higher TPI, that's teeth per inch. So if you're cutting something like plywood or hardwood, you want to use a blade with a 60 to 80 TPI, rather than just a general purpose 24 tooth blade. Now I can't really tell what the teeth count on this blade is because as you can tell, it's been in use. So we're going to take this blade out and replace it with a blade of a higher tooth count. But before you do that, you want to disconnect any and all power supplies to the tool. In this case, this is a cordless, so I'm going to take the batteries out. And if it was corded, you would just unplug it. And obviously that's for safety, right? You don't want to have your tool connected to any power supply when you're changing blades out or doing any maintenance on the tool. That's a recipe for disaster. Safety tip number one. So in order to remove the blade on power saws like circular saws, miter saws, etc., you're going to have to press the spindle lock button down to hold the blade in place to keep it from moving or spinning while you're trying to remove it. So here's the spindle lock button on this machine, and I'm going to press it down. And then I'm going to take my wrench and loosen the arbor nut. And remember, these are reverse threaded screws. So you're going to have to turn it clockwise to loosen them and counterclockwise to tighten. So let's go ahead and turn it clockwise to loosen it. Then once we have the arbor nut off, we can pull back the guard, lift the blade up, and then slide it out. Now obviously you can tell this blade's been used quite a bit and you can't read anything because it's all faded out. But if you want to know the tooth count for this one, all you got to do is count. So start here as a reference point and just count around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Yeah, so this is a general purpose 24 tooth blade, 7¼ inches in diameter. But we're going to go ahead and replace this with a higher tooth count blade. It's not a 60 tooth count blade, it's a 56 tooth count, but it's right up there and it definitely should give you a cleaner cut than the 24 tooth count blade. So let's slap this one in there. Remember, when you're installing your blade, you want to install it with the teeth facing up because the saw cuts up like this going through your material. So you got to make sure that the blade is installed correctly. Do not install it with the teeth facing down because you'll be cutting through your material like that. And that won't do any good, will it? All right, to install your new blade, you just slide it in, teeth facing up. Just place it over the arbor nut opening. Then you'll take your arbor nut flange or your flange washer and place it over it. Then you install your arbor nut, place it in, and remember to screw it counterclockwise to tighten it, okay? Then you want to press the spindle lock button. With your spindle lock button pressed down, just go ahead and finish tightening it with your wrench. Now you can put your batteries back in. I'm getting ready to cut, but I don't want to cut that deep. So I'm going to lower the depth of my cut. And all I got to do is flip this lever up, bring it down to about there, and that should be good enough to penetrate through my material. All right, so here's a tip. You want your blade depth to be about 1/4 inch deeper than the thickness of your wood. That's going to reduce blade exposure, meaning that you're less likely to damage anything underneath what you're cutting. You're going to minimize the tear out, and you'll get a faster, cleaner cut. Now I want you to take a look at the edge of that cut. From a distance, it looks pretty clean. But as you look a little closer, you can see that it's a little bit fuzzy on the edges. Because remember, the blade is cutting up, not down. So as it cuts up on the upstroke, it displaces the wood fibers and leaves it a little bit rough on the edges. Here's another example from a slightly thicker piece of wood. Now, this may not matter in certain circumstances, but let me show you a couple of cleaner ways to cut without having that. So one way of getting a cleaner cut is to take some painter's tape and place it over your cut line. And then just mark your cut line over the top of the tape and just cut right through it. As you can see, that's a much cleaner edge than the previous cut without the tape. Without the tape, with the tape. So like I said, when a saw blade comes up through the wood, it displaces those fibers upward that creates that rough edge. Painter's tape will hold those wood fibers in place long enough for the blade to pass through, and that'll give you that cleaner edge. All right, now a simpler way to avoid that problem is just to make sure that the good side, the side that you want showing on your material, is face down when you cut. That way, on the upstroke, it's actually pushing the fibers into the wood instead of out. So let's just say this is the side that you want to show. All you got to do is flip it over and cut from this side. Look how clean that edge is. All right, so another way to get those crisp, clean edges, and this method is probably more precise than the painter's tape method, is to use a utility knife to score your cut line. What this does is it cuts those top surface wood fibers nice and clean and evenly before you even cut. So when you finish cutting, you don't have to worry about any tear out. All right, guys, so another tip when cutting wood so you won't have that tear out is to support both sides of your piece while you're cutting. Now, right here, I have 2 scrap pieces of wood for illustration, just like I did throughout the video, but that was for a reason. I'm supporting both sides of my material because when there's no support on one side, when you're cutting, the piece that's going to fall away, your waste piece, it starts to break away before you even finish the cut. And that ends up tearing the wood, creating those jagged edges. That's why you want to use scrap boards, or even if you have sawhorses, to prevent that from happening. That will be the proper way to cut your material. Listen, if you want precise cuts, you can even combine some of these methods we just discussed. You can take the painter's tape and use it along with the utility knife to get even crispier edges. Also, make sure that the blade is running at full speed before you enter your material with it, and come to a full stop before you remove the blade from the material. If it's not at full speed when you enter your material, it's going to jam or bind. If you take it out of your material while it's spinning at the end of your cut, that can cause kickback and even more jagged edges. Make sure that you account for the kerf on the blade. That's the thickness of the blade or the width of the blade. You don't want that intruding into your measurements, giving you an off cut. So always make sure that the blade is on the waist side of your cut line. Try not to use these thick pencils to create your cut lines. They can throw your cut off by a 1/16 of an inch. Use a marking knife or, like I just showed you, a utility knife. You can't get any sharper than that. And if you want to keep those cuts really straight, clamp a straight edge to your material. It's called a sacrificial fence or a straight edge guide to keep you on track. Anyway, guys, I hope these tips give you more confidence when it comes to using any kind of power saw to cut your wood. If you appreciate the content, check out the links below and I'll see you in the next one.